Hello friends, this is a video for the year 2023. So here we will speak about the most important celestial events for the next year. I remind you that astrology should be understood as inspiration. It does not offer an accurate description of future events, but it can reveal the meaning and possible development of events. We all create our lives as individuals and as a collective in accordance with patterns that have been given in advance. But whether we will use certain patterns, means astrologically transits and aspects, in beneficial way depends on us and on our level of consciousness. So this video is quite long, and I hope I will have time to shorten it and put shortened versions on YouTube, and I also hope you will be able to watch it until the end. We'll see. So the new year begins practically in March. Until then, we live mostly in the shadow of the previous year. From January 12, Mars is direct, but it does not come out of its retrograde shadow until March 15. Saturn leaves the sign of Aquarius after 2.5 years on March 8 and enters the sign of Pisces for the first time in 30 years. Pluto enters the sign of Aquarius for the first time after the year 1777, which is very important for the life of the collective. But it remains in Aquarius at the first degrees only until June 11th. Shortly after that, on April 20th, the first eclipse occurs on the Libra-Aries axis, the first time after 18 years, and immediately after that in May there is another eclipse in Scorpio, so you see a very active spring we have. And so on about the transits. So in 2023, Saturn does not meet Neptune in the sign of Pisces. These two planets will make conjunctions only from the year 2025. And the first will be in June of 25 in the first degree of Aries. So there is no conjunction in Pisces, which is very important, but I'm not going to explain that in this video. Jupiter enters the sign of Pisces on May 17, but it also does not make the conjunction with Uranus in the sign of Taurus during the year 2023. They will make also conjunction only in April actually, of the year 2024. So to conclude for the beginning, the year 2023 is very challenging and significant, very stormy year, significantly different from the year 2022, but still it is a year of anticipation, occasionally also a year of careful evaluation of the situation and preparations for the much more stormy and decisive year 2024. But now let's go back a little to remember how this started. Only then we will be able to understand what will happen next and why will that happen. So this what we are going through started in 2020, when three so-called great conjunctions happen in Capricorn and also significant great conjunction in Aquarius at the end of the year 2020. I recommend you to watch my videos on those topics as they are very important. It is not that happened in 2020 and the effect of this conjunction stays there. No, it influences us and actually more and more by the time. So those conjunctions are crucial. My videos on those topics are December 2020, the name of the video is that, and further, the court, Tantalean punishment, new man. The second video, Jupiter and Saturn, dead kings and pregnant crones. The third video, Jupiter-Pluto 2020, conscience and fear. And the fourth video, the conjunction of Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, a moment in time. So if you saw those videos, you most probably know what is happening, but maybe you didn't. So maybe you should listen to them in order to understand what is happening now, later on, after these conjunctions. In the recommended video for December 2020, I especially talk about the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius. This meeting of the two planets is called the Great Mutation and will significantly mark our era. To put it briefly, with this mutation, the people wake up and a new form of social arrangement is created, some new social order, and probably it will be different in different parts of the world, even if typologically somehow similar. However, the remaining three conjunctions that preceded the same year, preceded this Jupiter-Saturn in Aquarius, they actually meant the end of the existing ruling structures. So after that, somebody else will rule this world. After that, what happened in 2020. Of course, many will always think of the year 2020, that was the year of disease in question. But now when I look back at the events, it is very, very clear for me why everything happened through that disease in question and why it did not happen in any other way. Because Neptune is in Pisces, and Neptune is the strongest planet in our time, in this crazy, crazy time we live in. And also, let me add, Neptune is the strongest and absolutely dominant planet in the year 2023 also. So the great conjunctions in Capricorn marked not only the end of the so-called rulers of the world, but also their attempt to stay where they are and to rule in a different new way. And we know how, by chipping people through the chaos that was supposed to lead to a worldwide digital dictatorship. And now the question arises why everything is so difficult. Why it is not easier for them, what they have been creating for decades, to put on, or why is not easier for us to wake up and release? Why is not happening one or the other thing? Well, this is because it is not easy to break with that what is unbreakable, so to speak, not in them and in us. We all have some unbreakable structures. And those very, very strong structures are symbolized with Capricorn and its ruler Saturn. Saturn represents the stone and the bone, or bone. And I guess you know what I'm trying to say, something that survives death. Bone survives death. So in us too, there are convictions, there are prejudices that we cannot abandon just like that. People are used to going to work, that someone pays them the salaries, checks them on the borders, collect taxes, give them mortgages as charities. Many are convinced that doctors maintain their lives, that schools teach them what is important to know in life, and so on and so on. So these are all basically prejudice, and they are still there where they are because we have this prejudice. So when asked when the end of this could be, I can say, based on astrology, it will be in the year 2025 to 2026. Those years actually already mark the beginning of something new, and I already spoke about that. Of course, there is a danger that we will destroy ourselves as a collective before, because self-destructive collective programs are very strong, unfortunately, I have to say. And why are they so strong? Well, because we live in the transition of epochs. And I explained that in that video that I recommended, Dead Kings and Pregnant Crones. And it means the old is dead and the new is not still born. So it is the time of chaos, which is some kind of a carnival, when all human values are turned upside down, and that continues still. Still, the name of this my video is In Search of Land. Although it is a little bit early for land, but why not to start on time? I choose this title especially because Saturn enters the sign of Pisces, while Neptune is also in Pisces. So while Neptune symbolizes the flood, Saturn is a rock at the bottom of the ocean. One explanation of Saturn, but potentially also Saturn is an island or even land. So with Saturn in Pisces, we have opportunities to emerge during the next 2.5 years. Of course, drawing goes first for some people swimming, breaking oars, and the like, you know. It's not really easy transit. And now how to explain it, let's explain all this in more details. You know, this was like the resume actually, what I started with. So now let's go more in details about the 2023. I will start with Mars. We entered the new year with retrograde Mars in Gemini, and it is in this sign from the end of August 2022 and remains there until the end of March 2023. For whole 7 months, which is really incredible, Mars leads and fights. It makes everything very dramatic, and the way how they fight now is not that what we see through medias. They're using satellites, drones, new techniques of convincing the opponent, and we don't know things about that. Already from the second half of January, this struggle is gradually leading to some results, and what we see for now is that around 30 countries are attacking Russia through Ukraine. And we see that America is increasing its war budget for the next year. So it means everything is very, very serious. And of course, they're constantly lying in medias. In the life of individuals, the era of life symbolized by Gemini will be free from the end of January, and people will feel less frustrated there. We all have Gemini somewhere in our natal chart. So it means that we will all feel like more active there, not we can impose our will stronger because we were in this era of our life stopped in a way. And this is especially true for Gemini people who can finish now some previously started work. They can start finishing it from January to March. Well, the story about Mars also now leads us further to the topic of eclipses. We said that the first eclipse on the axis Aries-Libra occurs on April 20th, and it will be in the sign of Aries. This will be the most significant eclipse on the axis of Libra Aries for the next 2 years. So what will happen? Well, it happened that Mars is activated again because Mars rules Aries. And since during the eclipses on the Aries-Libra axis, the north node Rahu is in Aries, that means that its ruler will be Mars. So that means the struggle continues, only differently. Fortunately, always when there are eclipses on Aries-Libra axis, when there is a war, there is a peace also. Namely, Aries is the sign of individual, a man as an individual. It represents his ability to survive, to maintain himself in life, and maybe to fight for surviving. That is why it's very possible that some struggles will begin and people will fight for their urban survival. So far, there have been protests in many places in the world, some very massive and continuous, but it is possible that they will be more militant in the future, next year. Of course, those mad people who create chaos in the world in order to keep themselves in power, they actually want wars. In a way, they prepare them. And that's why they talk about some guerrilla wars or eventually some civil wars that will appear in different countries in the world. And of course, it is the question, is it that necessarily? Or things can change in the world without wars. I guess it is also possible. In April, there is a solar eclipse that will be most visible in Australia and Chinese seas. Watch that. So the story now takes us to China and to Taiwan, which was expected, of course, and it talks about the ambitions of America and NATO because now they're fighting Russia and China at the same time. So these are very interesting ambitions. I'm laughing, but it's not funny because so many people are dying, and unfortunately, this is the world where we live in. While the North Node is in Aries, the South Node is in Libra. So Ketu is in Libra. The first eclipse in Libra will occur on October 14, 2023. That will be an annual eclipse, so it will not have the intensity of the total eclipse, but it will still be very significant. And they call it the Great American Eclipse. This eclipse is the second of the three significant solar eclipses visible from US. The total solar eclipse visible from US was in August 2017. The second one is now this one in October 2023. And the third total solar eclipse will be visible from Mexico, US and Canada and will happen in April 2024. And the old schools of astrology say that eclipses have the most effect on the parts of the world where they are visible, and then they often reverse situation by 180 degrees, So we are facing now big changes in these parts of the world. In May and October, the old eclipses of the Taurus-Scorpio axis that we talked about many times will continue. So about which we have already talked a lot about this axis, that will continue. The same topics are still actual, and they talk about money, banks, food, energy sources, the survival of the biological life on Earth, hopefully, and so on and so on. I specifically talk about it in the video, which has the name Eclipses, Lunar Nodes on the Taurus-Scorpio axis. If you wish, you can check that video also. Eclipses on this axis are weakening now a bit, but we still feel them strongly in 2023 and also in 2024. I still think that we will not be hungry in many places of the world. No hunger, I guess. Maybe only there where people are... Okay, I will not say that. I guess many of us will survive. We will not be hungry. But of course, it is a big question what will happen with the current banking system. I think it will fall. And new currencies and a new way of exchanging energy will appear. Let's just see which of two or three possible new systems will win in which part of the world, and let's see when will this psycho game finish that they are imposing on us in the last year or two. This is not only because of Neptune, but it is also because of Ketu in Scorpio. We can talk about the possibility that European Union, EU, will break up with these eclipses, not only because European Union has the most of the planets in Scorpio, but also because Uranus and Rahu in Taurus are leading nations into independence. Let's see the example. India, Sri Lanka, and Myanmar gained independence in 1947 and 1948 with the same constellations. And now we see that many countries already want to withdraw from the European Union, but it's not still talk about that officially. Interestingly, China is Libra, that's how we think, and I guess it is really so, and is now entering this world ring with Ketu in its sign, which does not give it much strength. Of course, Ketu brings wisdom, and China has the wisdom, but the question is whether it will be enough. Where Ketu transits through the sign of Libra, Its ruler is Venus, and this planet will do a special dance in 2023. Well, Venus will be in Leo about 4.5 months, from the 6th of June until the 9th of October, and Venus feels pretty good there. So what will China do? We will see in the coming year or years. But of course, China will be forced to overcome its internal contradictions. While the eclipses were on the Taurus-Scorpio axis, everyone who has planets in these signs started new 18-year cycle, and it still will be, also into 2023. Those people are finishing one and starting new 18-year cycle. Now the focus shifts also to those who have planets in Libra and Aries. Now for them finishes one 18-year cycle and starts new one. No one should be in a hurry. There is time for everything, People with planets in mentioned signs have time, you can think of that what to do and how to react to these transits in this 2023 and next year also. So you have time. I'm not talking here about personal horoscopes, but I would recommend to Libras and Aries to think about that. Is there maybe possibly some new path, that is appearing and they can go maybe that way, because that would give them new possibilities to growth, to learn about themselves. And if new path opens, maybe that is the sign that it's time for the next phase of life. During June and July, Mars and Venus will travel together through the sign of Leo, which is interesting, even though they don't make the conjunction. And not only can new loves appear for everybody, of course, but it is also possible that many, especially Libras, Aries, Leos, Scorpios, and Taurus people will experience some shining moments, fame, success, and recognition from others. And now here next we will talk about the symbolism of the transit of major planets. These are Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn. Pluto enters Aquarius for the first time in 245 years. The last time was in Aquarius was in the period from 1777 until 1798. During 2023 will be in Aquarius only for a very short time, from March 24th until June 11th. But it is certain that we will feel this shift of Pluto in a way. With Pluto, we will be faced with a choice as humanity, and we still have time to decide how we will live on a maybe subconscious collective level. In 2024, Pluto is also slow entering, and finally it enters Aquarius in 2025. So still have time. Pluto will then stay in Aquarius until the year 2044. But when we talk about choice and war, that leads us to the myth of Paris, and I would like to talk about it a bit. In the myth of the judgment of Paris, the seemingly naive play of the goddesses led the ancient world into a war, huge war. Of course, this is only mythology, not a real historical war. We don't know if it ever happened really historically. So this war caused many deaths and the destruction of the Troy, beautiful and very rich city. Here I am not emphasizing the parallel between the conquest of Troy and the current situation in the world, and I'm not talking about the Trojan horse or other numerous motives that this myth offers. I'm only talking about Zeus' decision and the transfer of responsibility to incompetent people. So let's explain. How does this myth begin? They say that Zeus wanted to cause a war in order to divide the human race. He wanted to make a bit less people, like to depopulate the world, if you want. So he decided to destroy the heroes and at the same time to glorify the Greek heroes and his daughter Helen. He consulted somebody and was told to bring disagreement among the goddesses. So during the dinner, an apple was thrown to the table with the title "To the Most Beautiful." And 3 goddesses thought it belonged to them. No one of the gods wanted to judge, but they transferred the responsibility and the judgment to Paris, a rather naive young man. Paris decides in favor of Aphrodite, who promises him the most beautiful woman in the world, and thus the war between Greeks and Trojans slowly begins. While the fight was going on, the gods had their own heroes that they supported, and so often changed the situation in unexpected way, maybe even unfair way. You can read about this myth if you don't know it, but I think this is the main thing here. So what is the message? There are many of them, plenty of messages are coming from this, but we see that when feelings are strong, which are essentially irrational, feelings are irrational, and feelings have Paris, and when passions and desires are so strong that they prevent making conscious decisions, and Paris was put in that situation, then everything can end in destruction and on a huge scale. Even now, if our destinies are decided by inexperienced, weak persons who knows what reasons are in a position of power, but do not know what they are really doing, we will not end well. So I guess you know the message now. So who will Pluto give power to? Of course, to the people, because Aquarius is people, masses. But those crazy people who want to rule the world, they're also prepared for Pluto entering in the Aquarius sign. And they want to control masses by using digital technologies. And Aquarius represents freedom, but also represents digital technology, that the digital world generally, frequencies, waves, energy, everything that we now spoke about. And of course, Pluto in Aquarius is tightly connected with their idea of the Great Reset. In the videos entitled Plutocracy and in the other entitled Technocracy, I talk about the fact that plutocrats that rule the world until now want to give their, or want to change for technocrats actually. And the more Pluto moves into Aquarius, the clearer will be what they were preparing. So with this transit of Pluto, humanity has the opportunity to break free from the slavery and become alive again, or it is possible that it will be mastered by digital technology. As I said, both of those versions are compatible with the Aquarius energy. Of course, what would be the best? The best would be to combine new technology, which can of course be better than this what they have and use, with our archaic knowledge. But to do that, we need to be completely free, free from inside, and we need also external freedom to make that. There are many movements now in the world through which people differentiate themselves from the system. They go out of system and find ways to be independent. Some return personal documents, some do not. In any case, they realize that the old system we lived in has been overcome. Many know that we are completely marginalized, we as a people, and we basically have nothing, even though if they talk to us about democracy and human rights, in fact, they are owners of our lives, our properties, and everything, according to the law, and I don't know many people who know this. Before Pluto was in Aquarius from the year 1532 to 1553, but I'm not going to go into the past. Anyway, they changed the history, and everything they teach us is fake. But if you want to study it, you need to know Pluto has cycles of approximately 250 years. We certainly know that the collective consciousness changes when Pluto changes sign. This planet affects the life of individuals only if it touches significant points of horoscope. Otherwise, we feel it through collective. In Aquarius, of course, we said it can mean changes in technological development and significant movements and awakening of people or masses. And let me just tell you that no other planet is as significant for changes in the life of the collective as Pluto, and no other sign does Pluto have a greater influence on the life of the collective than in Aquarius. So now you know it and analyze it yourself. While Pluto gradually moves into Aquarius during 2023 and 24, it still occasionally returns to Capricorn. His journey through the sign of Capricorn was very, very painful. It lasted from 2008 until now, and we said at the beginning of this video why was that so difficult. So Capricorn represents solid structures that are almost immutable, while Pluto brings the inevitable deepest transformation through death. As they say, there is no resurrection without death. That's why everything is so painful, because now Pluto needs to break something that is like unbreakable. However, with Pluto in Aquarius, it will be easier for us because Pluto is more compatible with the Aquarius sign. With Pluto in Aquarius, actually, we could continue to live beautifully. But we will see if we are ready for that as humanity. You know that many people talk about age of Aquarius, but there are different calculations. So many do not agree when this age of Aquarius really begins. Personally, I think that Aquarius appears as the dominant archetype in the collective unconsciousness since the beginning of the 20th century. Corporations, communism, America is a melting pot, internet, and many other things speak about that we already live through the archetype of Aquarius, and now Pluto will only intensify it. Pardon? Oh, true, as you see. Oh, sorry. Notice how this archetype is experienced by two parties in today's world. That's what I also would like to mention here. Crazy people who hold the system, globalists, colonizers, or whatever you can call them as you want, they say that our lives will be decided by artificial intelligence and technical God. And they call this progressive and new technological revolution that leads us to some fifth dimension and so on. In that new dimension, there is a place only for those who are nicely chipped, and so on. And look this. Many so-called spiritual people of today's time speak similarly. And they said that the golden age is coming, that man and the planet are moving into a higher dimension, and only the chosen ones go there, some good souls, and etc., etc. Possibly we are really moving into some new dimension, but not in a way as many explain. So I want to say here that life is actually somewhere between. It is always between. That is the third side in Vedic tradition, and maybe many other, but I just don't know them. Neither the sky nor the earth, but the middle space in which there is a place for man. This is what Vedic tradition speaks about. That middle space is constantly being created. It is created by man himself, like when a stone is crashed against the stone and it creates a spark of life. That man cannot be chipped and cannot be disembodied. In order for a man to be a man, he must consist of as that many layers as he always had. So Pluto in Aquarius either brings complete freedom or slavery, total slavery. Hopefully this first, of course. But look how many people will oppose to this freedom if it comes. Because when we speak about freedom through Aquarius sign, we speak about the end of castes, equalization of man and woman, opening of borders for everybody, and so on. So each part of the world will have a problem with this actually. So further, let's we speak about Neptune shortly, not that long as about Pluto. Neptune is absolutely the most dominant planet these years. I talk a lot about transit of Neptune through the sign of Pisces, so I'm not going to repeat myself. There are many, many videos about this. Neptune is both the savior and the disease C19. You maybe remember that we described Neptune mainly positive, in a positive way, until the beginning of 2020. We were speaking about spiritual renaissance and so on. But suddenly, when Neptune reached the 16th degree of Pisces, and there was the conjunction of Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, Neptune starts to symbolize this a huge manipulation, huge lie, huge this trance, hysteria, and manipulation of people. So we can talk that Neptune actually brought this deception of the millennia, so-called disease, false methods of treatment, and so on and so on. You may recall that we mentioned before that when Neptune completes its transit through the sign of Pisces in 2026, a new age will arise and we will have a new calendar. You know, it's a very important thing. There is a lot of fraud about timing. They're telling us lies about timing. And not only that, we need to really start new. And not only Neptune, there are other transits that speak about that. So now maybe you will ask, okay, so much water, when we will search for land, when we will arrive to that land? Well, we said at the beginning of the video, now when Saturn is entering the sign of Pisces, we are close to the land, but still not time to drop the anchor. And that leads us actually to the transit of Saturn through the sign of Pisces. So let's talk about that. Saturn will be in Pisces from March 2023 until 2025-26. Saturn is in its fall in Pisces. It's very important. Its ruler is now Neptune while is in Pisces. And Neptune is in the strongest position. So the game is led by Neptune. Pisces is the sign of healing, spiritual life, art, IT technology, mathematics, and so on. Pisces represents collective feelings, compassion, and mercy. It changes everything physical into immaterial and carries within itself the cosmic secret of spiritual life. In a negative sense, it means deception, drugs, superstitions, fake medicines, alcohol, and so. Of course, Pisces is dominated by the element of water, and this element is associated with feelings in astropsychology. Further, feelings are the main transmitter of inner images and patterns. This is now, this was always known by people who practice spiritual healing techniques. Water is the transmitter. So here Saturn tries to prohibit a person from his experiencing feelings as a collective. So he cannot feel the same as other people around him. In a certain way, Saturn here distances him from the collective. But since Neptune in such a strong position, is in a strong position, then Saturn remains powerless. In the ancient Middle Eastern tradition, Saturn was called the night sun. And that explains why is it so worshipped by the dark forces that now try to control this planet. I would like to say now positive and negative manifestations of Saturn in Pisces. Positive manifestations can be the end of everything that prevents a person from developing spiritually, the destruction of false towers and cities, alternative treatments, new methods of treatment. It gives ability for a man to wait, to be patient. It can mean the end of some previous limitations, maybe karmic ones, because Saturn in Pisces has that very, very strong feeling of karma and the end of some karma. Also, this transit shows that borders and restrictions have no meaning. So actually Saturn in Pisces loses its effect because his job is to create boundaries and structures. And also, with this transit, one develops the ability to serve others. And what are his negative manifestations? It can mean imprisonment. You would, of course, recall lockdowns, shame, wrong treatment, emigration, exile, inability to experience reality together with others, spiritual or emotional isolation, leading later in physical isolation, strong sense of guilt, destruction of all structures in a negative way. It can be positive and negative. The final stage of flood can mean the inability to create new structures. So society is in chaos and nothing can be built. That's possible. Then it can mean the debts are growing, debaters are not paying, so nobody pays anything to anybody, and so on. So somehow powerlessness also is one manifestation of this Saturn. This transit also raises the issue of migrants. Will it be possible to use migrants and refugees for fights, for example? That is the question. We'll see. When the refugees left the Middle East, Saturn was in Sagittarius, Neptune in Pisces, or something like that. I talk about that in my video Saturn in Sagittarius, 2015 to 2017. If you wish, you can check that older video. There you will see how I explain that clash between Saturn and Neptune when they are in tension. In that time was the square, the quadrant between them. We can even say that Saturn in Pisces can mean that you either land on the ground and anchor yourself, or you leave the ground, means you immigrate. This is both things can be explained through this symbolism. Saturn in Pisces can mean imprisoning people, of course, again. However, the question is whether it would work one time more. We know that the World Health Organization is now the main organization that needs to decide on pandemics. It has been given rights that are above the constitution of the concrete countries, and everything is already signed. And that is the symbolism of Saturn in Pisces, governance through health organization, because Pisces is healing. But it is certain that the ruler of Saturn, now Neptune, can very easily destroy all laws and overwhelm, inundate, and submerge everything that Saturn has created. It can be like tsunami. Therefore, I think that they will not succeed in ruling through this organization or any other way, that their attempts will fall apart, and we will see whether that will happen immediately or in the later phase of the transit of Saturn through the Pisces. But let's see how they can possibly succeed. Well, that could be by recreating, thus, again, mass hysteria and collective hypnosis. It means that that could be if Saturn gives his power to Neptune. But the trouble is that his ruler is Neptune. So Saturn imposes boundaries and Neptune destroys them. But if Saturn gives the power to Neptune, and Neptune symbolizes IT technology, and if they create the situation that we are ruled by some artificial intelligence through the antennas and so on, perhaps that is possible, that they can rule and there will be no structures. But I cannot really imagine that. So I don't think that they will succeed. While Saturn was in Aquarius from 2020 to 23, it showed that what is really real in this world and what is not, And we said in the video Saturn in Aquarius, you can also watch that video, that many world organizations will, in a way, fall apart, and that new one will be created, which is happening more and more now, and we see more clear that what we were talking in the video Saturn in Aquarius, that really it seems three, maybe will be more different civilizational models appear, and we will see how they will look like. And now let's talk about Uranus in Taurus shortly, because I talk a lot about Uranus in Taurus, and we know that it will be there until 2026. Uranus is in its fall in Taurus, so quite destructive. But I would like to add now that its importance is diminished because it's no longer in the square with Saturn. In 2023, the square disappears slowly. But this year, for the short time, while Pluto will be in Aquarius in the middle of the year, its ruler will be Uranus, and that's dangerous. And it is possible that approximately in the middle of the year, the crisis of values and potentially even the crisis of values will happen, and potentially even greater economic crisis. Our luck is in that all structures are so decadent that already they're and completely insane that they're now destroying themselves. That's what creates the space for us also. The positive side of Uranus in Taurus is, for example, that it destroys all scientific paradigm and discovers new qualities of matter. We will learn about that in the years to come. And now, even more than ever before, was clear how Nikola Tesla was right when he said that everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. It's really so. Play a music to a handful of flour, and you put it on the table, you play the music to it, and it will change its shape. So how could the biochemical structure of a person not change when you start emitting waves that are also at unnatural frequencies? So that's what they are doing to us now, and of course that what creates mass diseases. And they're using that by using Tesla's technologies and some other which they're hiding from us. In the second half of the year, Jupiter will also be in Taurus, not just Uranus, thus emphasizing the importance of the Taurus sign. But let's remember that for now Jupiter is in Aries and will remain in its sign until May 16. Jupiter is very, very important because it represents the myth-making principle in us. So what we believe that happens to us, either to us as an individual or as a collective. Therefore, if we believe that we will be destroyed, we will be destroyed. But if we believe that what is coming is a better world, then it will be that better world. I'm very, very unhappy when I see scary titles of articles and videos on the internet. They create programs on an unconscious level that are devastating to man. So we should avoid them. Well, when Jupiter is in Aries, combativeness, creativity, and the will to self-preservation are emphasized. And while it's in Taurus, sensual needs, the material side of life, the need for economic growth are emphasized. With Jupiter in Taurus, conservatism will strengthen, and there will be much more talk about returning to old values, which is fantastic. Then the financial world is looking for stability, for some stable currencies, and stronger importance of gold as a basis for economic stability. However, since the Uranus is in Taurus, which destroys all of this, then unfortunately I have to say that Jupiter, as the planet of expansion, can increase the crisis. So what to say? It is simply like that. However, Aries and Taurus, as well as people with planets in these signs, whatever you have in these signs, actually you have the opportunity to progress and to be successful, especially if you have visions and now you are aware of your qualities. In general, everyone who knows how to rely on themselves, their abilities and their energy will be fine with this transit of Jupiter and Uranus there and everything else. And this also applies to individuals, to countries and collective. So the carnival is still going on. It's very now even destructive. The collective energies are getting stronger. Everything that is happening is becoming more and more massive, and everything is still in the process of overturning and chaos. And it will be like that for a few more years, as we already said. And that's all for now. If you like, you can of course schedule personal consultations with me. Just please take in account that I'm dealing with astrological psychology and spiritual astrology, as I understand classic astrology only as the language. And I think if once you learn classic astrology, then you use it for astropsychology, astrotheology, astromedicine, and things like that. On my web pages, which have the name symbolicthinking.net, you will see in the section services, new service, let's say, that I now offer. This is the method that I named the change of the code, the change of the perception. It is a method that I have developed while working with clients in recent years with the help of techniques that I learned and applied before. On the site, I briefly explain how I see change of unconscious programs. It is not a difficult thing. It is simply very simple, and it is accordance with Jungian psychology. I also recommend to everybody who is watching those videos and similar videos to study astrology. If you don't know it yourself, study a little bit. And I have in English my course of astrology. This is online astrology school. It is also on that web page, symbolicthinking.net. And check it if you want to study astrology in a simple way online. If you like this video, like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. And thank you very, very much for that. I wish you happiness, health, joy, and love. And see you soon.